Back on our podcast today, we are one-on-one with former Oklahoma Senator A.J. Griffin. She's from the Guthrie area, and I know a little bit about your background. You grew up in Mayes County, did you not?
I did. Grew up in Adair, as did both my parents. And so my mom's still there, and so I'm back pretty frequently.
There you go. Yeah, Adair, the Warriors and Lady Warriors, always good in basketball and not too bad when I lived at Grove when they were in football. And so I know that area pretty well up there in that part of the area southwest of Grand Lake. So you and I both wound up in central Oklahoma, so here we are, right?
Right. I've been here for quite some time, married a Guthrie boy, and we make Southern Logan County home now.
There you go, and appreciate you being with us today. We're not here to talk about ancient history, right? We're just kidding. We're here to talk about the group Oklahoma United and the fact that they are joining up with the Stillwater League of Women Voters for an upcoming community discussion on State Question 836. And really, this deals with the future of how our elections will be here in Oklahoma. The forum is coming up next week on May the 6th, and as part of Oklahoma United's statewide effort to educate voters about what this question promotes, which is open primaries, to ensure that every Oklahoman has a voice in every election. And that's really what it comes down to, is it not?
Right. We're here to talk about the future of the state of Oklahoma.
Mm-hmm.
Our election system right now, the way we hold elections, has disenfranchised a lot of Oklahomans. We have the lowest voter turnout in the country. And in many situations, elections in November are just simply meaningless. There's either no one on the ballot at all, or the decision's already been made in the primary. And our goal is to change that, to re-engage Oklahomans in their government by making every trip to the polls something that matters, and every vote at every election something that really counts for the future and the direction of our state.
Now, more than a decade ago, you got elected to the Oklahoma Senate, so you know kind of how this works directly and indirectly, don't you?
Right. Well, in fact, whenever I ran my first election, I did have a Democrat. There was a general election, but truthfully, the voter turnout for that election was so low that it was really decided in the primary. And then whenever I ran for re-election, my election was over in the primary. There was no one filed in the second half of that. So there was a big chunk of the electorate that didn't have an opportunity to vote for me or vote for my opponent, either one. So this has nothing to do with who we're electing, and everything to do with how the system has discouraged participation. And we want to increase, get out of the bottom of voter participation and really re-energize people around who we're sending to represent us. I call this getting back to true representative government.
You've been an advocate of open primaries for a long time. I know when you were in the Senate, you were kind of this way. But explain the difference for people who don't maybe even vote between a closed primary or a general election that is, shall we say, regulated a little differently than it would be if it were open.
Well, it's going to be pretty familiar to anyone that votes in a municipal election. So for those that live there in Stillwater and vote for city council and mayor, this process mimics that. Now, that's different. There's no party affiliation listed with individuals during those nonpartisan race. The open primary system's not the same as a nonpartisan race.
Mm-hmm.
Each candidate would be choose a political party that they're affiliated with, that they want to be recognized, whether that be Republican or Democrat, or the almost 480,000 Oklahomans that are actually registered as independents. So that would still be on the ballot. But every voter has an opportunity to vote for every candidate. So all the voters have a chance to choose from the long list of people that, hopefully a long list of people that filed to run for office. The two highest vote getters move on to the next round, which would be the general election. So if you like sports, look at it a little bit like a championship tournament, so that you advance past the first round if you are the top two.
And this has been a system that we've had for decades, correct?
Yeah, and municipal government has really kind of always run this way. And I'm a big fan of municipalities. I actually think, while I was in the Senate, started to really dig into, where are the decisions being made that truly impact the quality of life that Oklahomans experience, and so became a big fan of municipalities and what happens in cities and towns all across the state, and also know that in those communities, those elected officials have to be responsive to everyone. I did not see that when I was a member of the Oklahoma Senate. I did not feel that all of my colleagues, most of us, were elected in a Republican primary. That's just the way that it was. And everyone, all my constituency was important to me, and I wanted to have an opportunity to engage with them, for them to support me if they wanted to, or obviously they could vote for somebody else if they thought they aligned with that person's thinkings and goals for Oklahoma.
Where this really affects maybe an independent voter is the fact the Democrats changed their tune a few years ago to allow for votes there. But if you are, say, an independent as registered, and you cannot vote in a Libertarian or Republican primary, which, again, kind of defeats the purpose. And this is why we're talking about the open primary system in this proposed state question.
Oklahoma is not an outlier in the rapid growth of independently registered voters that don't want to select and be recognized as a member of either the two mainstream parties. Mm-hmm. And right now, they're completely disenfranchised, and they don't have an opportunity to make selections. It isn't all in Oklahoma right now. If you look at in that 2024, the just very recent election cycle, in the House of Representatives, there are 101 seats. 69 of those were decided in the primary. The vast majority were already decided before November. Only 6 of the 77 county sheriff's posts were contested by members of both major parties. 6 out of 77. So 71 counties, it was already decided early in the process. And that's for something as important as your county sheriff. So removing that system, that exclusionary system, first of all, I think it also increases the people that we have that are willing to run for office, which is important. Even just filing and running for office and being part of the process is a massive contribution to Oklahoma, and it makes us better having people that are willing to express different points of view. So I really value the process. I think our founding fathers knew what they were doing when they decided that this country would have representative government. The structure, the system that we are using right now is getting in the way of the will of the people. And it really, we've got to improve voter turnout in Oklahoma. We can't be at the bottom of the barrel in that very important statistic that kind of says how you're doing. It's the health of the democracy in your state is influenced by how many people show up and participate.
Yeah, general elections in particular have led to the lowest voter turnout in the nation. Oklahoma, the last 2 election cycles of presidential election years, 2020 and 2024, only 1 of 4 under 30 who could vote. And this is in an era when we're seeing progressives and others who want to turn out, but they just don't because maybe they don't want to vote for just one thing, or they don't feel it's important enough to come out to vote, or whatever the issue might be. But if things were already decided, as you mentioned for the most part, and the last 2 elections in 20 and 24 point this out, it can become an interesting thing for national races or U.S. Congress races that are on the ballot that have to be decided in those general elections. The idea is to get people to vote, not to have a reason not to.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I mean, if you look at even in a presidential year, we just lag behind other states that have different systems. And this is something that does, again, we're back to, it feels familiar if you vote for municipal officers. We kind of know how this works. And most people, we have a lot of turnover at the municipal level. Mayors in particular can be very vulnerable. If the people are not happy, that person loses that position, and it'll encourage regular everyday Oklahomans to engage in the process, which is personally something I really, really value. I do value the voice of every single person that's in a constituency, and I think getting them to the polls is pretty important.
And again, the state question is 836. Where is the status of 836 right now? Is it going to be voted on, or is it to the point it has to be approved to get on the ballot? Where do we stand on that?
So we are still in that protest period. We haven't started collecting signatures. Hopefully that will happen soon. We're early in the process. The goal is for the voters to see this on the ballot in November of 2026, which will be here before we know it. That's just coming up on us next year. So very soon we'll get past the protest period, then we'll have the ballot language, and you'll start to see people out and about collecting signatures. This isn't an initiative petition, so in order to put this in front of the voters, we also need voters and Oklahomans to sign the petition and help us get it there.
And this leads us to the upcoming forum here in Stillwater on May the 6th. It'll begin to be at the Stillwater Community Center to get people interested in finding out more about what this is all about. One of the reasons why we're doing this interview and podcast with former State Senator A.J. Griffin from the Guthrie area. The League of Women Voters are co-hosting this along with Oklahoma United. How did you get hooked up with Oklahoma United?
Well, Margaret Kobos is the founder of Oklahoma United, and I've just been vocal about wanting to change things, and got hooked up with them. And I said, "Listen, I'll lend my voice." There's several of us that former colleague of mine, Mayor David Holt, is involved in this movement, and former Mayor of Tulsa, G.T. Bynum. There's several of us that really feel strongly that we need to change our system to better reflect Oklahomans and the will of the people. So we're looking forward to seeing everyone next Tuesday at 6 o'clock at the Community Center, and you can hear from Margaret and myself. If you're curious, we also encourage you to visit our website, and can answer your questions, sign up to be part of the movement. We have something called the Common Sense Club, because we feel like this is a common sense reform, and we'd ask you to join us.
The event is free and open to the public. You can RSVP or find out more about this group at ok-united.org. You can also sign up, but there'll be a presentation. You guys will probably do a little time on kind of setting this up like we have, maybe in some more detail, and then answer questions about how open primaries not only are important, obviously, from your point of view and probably for the state, but impact civic engagement and voter participation. And it gets back to accountability, because there, as you mentioned earlier, there can be a time lag on things. There can also be other issues that come up. But if people are giving an interest in the state government, and you've seen this from your perspective as a state senator, not you personally, but others might feel, well, we'll just do what we need to do. They don't want that. You got to be accountable.
Opening the primary and changing the way we elect people requires elected officials to answer to all the voters. And I think that is a good thing. I really do. I think it means that individuals will more closely reflect the will of their district. And it kind of grounds us back to what do the people that we are supposed to be serving want us to do, as opposed to what do I need to do to appease and appeal to a very small minority of people in my particular party that get me reelected every time. So it changes the system. Every once in a while you got to mix things up, and I think we're at a place in Oklahoma that we need to mix up our system. We need to change the system and get back to the basics of people going to the polls and electing people that represent them.
And that is true not only on the state level, but also participation-wise for a federal election. Let's say for the next presidential cycle, it could impact that, but it could also just impact the number of people registered to vote who actually turn out to vote. And those have always been different numbers in our state. I've lived here 45 years now, and it seems to be that it's been that way since I've been here, and it was that way before. Maybe you get more people registered, but then they don't have a reason to vote.
Right. We should be proud as Oklahomans of our election system. We have a system that is reasonable and secure and really accommodating with early voting and mail-in ballots. You do have to register at an appropriate time, and it wouldn't change that. It doesn't change registration. You're still required to register. You're still going to have to show ID at the polls. All of those things that we're proud of that make our election systems really secure, so that we don't doubt the results of an election. But what it does change is the people that will be encouraged to go, to get engaged, to be at the polls, to participate. And I believe it also will increase the number of people who are registering to run for office, because that is also something that we've seen a decline. We've had a couple of election cycles where the numbers bounce back up, but we're seeing fewer and fewer individuals willing to put their name on the line and run for office. And I believe strongly that representative government requires us all to engage, at the very least as a voter. But I encourage people to consider running for something, run for school board, run for county commissioner, run for state representatives, get involved, and put your money where your mouth is and really get to be part of the process.
And as you know, from having been up here for legislative forums and Chamber of Commerce events and League of Women Voters events and so forth, when you were in the state Senate, you know the Oklahoma League of Women Voters, and in particular here in Stillwater, is a very active group of trying to get the word out on anything political as far as people voting and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Well, voters tend to think that their voice doesn't really matter. And quite frankly, with our current system, a lot of times it doesn't. The election's already been decided. Mm-hmm. By the time a general election should be the most robust participation in November. And we just don't see that. It's already decided a lot of the time. And in order for us to get people engaged, they do need to have something to vote for. And that is another reason why we believe this reform of our election system that puts a question before the voters in November of who do you want to represent you is very, very important.
Again, the event coming up on Tuesday, May 6th, is the Forum Oklahoma United, part of their effort to educate statewide voters about open primaries and ensure every Oklahoman has a voice in every election, and to try to get 836 on the ballot coming up a little more than a year and a half from now. The event is Tuesday, May 6th at the Stillwater Community Center. It's open to everybody. There'll kind of be a community gathering at 6, and then the program and discussion 6:30. And again, Oklahoma United founder and CEO Margaret Kobos, along with former State Senator A.J. Griffin, who we've been talking to, will be the featured speakers for that event. And A.J., it would be remiss. A lot of people up here know who you are and your work that you did when you were in the State Senate. And what are you doing now that you're no longer a State Senator?
So I have a great gig right now. I am the CEO of the Potts Family Foundation. We're a dual-missioned organization working to ensure that nonprofits are sustainable and also funding early childhood programs. And we actually work very closely with an amazing program there in Stillwater, Our Daily Bread. Mm-hmm. We fund a family resource center, which provides them with staff to be navigators, so that when an individual or a family comes in and they're needing to address the food insecurity or other needs, those navigators provide wraparound support and connect them to other services. It's a very holistic approach, and we are very proud to partner with Our Daily Bread. We also serving the same Stillwater area. Northern Oklahoma Youth Services is another funded entity with an FRC that's serving Noble and the Ponca City, Noble County and the Ponca City area. And I love my job. We equip communities to maximize their assets in order to support the families that are raising kids in their communities. And we really believe that resilient children live in resilient families that are surrounded by a resilient community. And we know that Stillwater is a strong community, and the Payne County area knows how to address a challenge. And we help at Potts to equip those communities to make families as strong as possible and support them whenever they need something.
Very good. Good to hear the update about what you're involved in, and look forward to the program on Tuesday. And again, if people want more information, how can they find it?
So they need to visit our website. You can go to oklahomaunited.org, and we will. Also, you can check out voteyes836.com. that gives you information on the state question. But we'd ask you to join us, join this Common Sense Club, and let's change Oklahoma by reforming our voting system.